You have a solid work history. You know you are capable. But when someone asks what role you want next, your answer changes every week. One day, you are considering management. The next, you are researching a complete career change. You save job postings, compare courses, edit your LinkedIn headline, and still do not apply with confidence. This is not usually an intelligence problem. Career decisions feel difficult because you are not choosing only a job. You are making predictions about your future while protecting your income, identity, reputation, and previous choices. Then you are trying to do all of that with incomplete information. The result is a strange kind of paralysis. You think more, but you do not necessarily learn more. To get unstuck, you need to separate the psychological pressure from the practical decision. Then you can evaluate 4 things clearly: your values, your usable skills, evidence from the market, and one small test before making a large commitment. First, let's understand why the decision feels so personal. Most people quietly turn their job title into part of their identity. They do not just say, "I work in accounting." They start thinking, "I am an accountant." That difference matters. If you have spent 8 years building that identity, considering another path can feel like deleting 8 years of progress. Even when the new path uses much of the same experience, your mind may interpret the change as starting over. This is why a capable operations manager can spend months considering project management but never make the move. On paper, the overlap may be obvious. Both roles can involve timelines, budgets, stakeholders, risks, and process improvement. Emotionally, though, the person may think, "I would be a beginner again." The better question is not, "Who will I be if I leave this field?" Ask, "Which parts of my professional identity do I want to carry forward?" Maybe you want to keep solving complicated problems, but stop managing people. Maybe you enjoy client communication, but dislike sales targets. Maybe you want technical work with fewer emergencies. You are not choosing between keeping your entire identity and throwing it away. You are deciding which parts still fit. The second force is uncertainty. Job seekers often believe they need confidence before they can act. In reality, career confidence usually develops after you gather evidence through action. You cannot think your way into knowing exactly what it feels like to work in cybersecurity, recruiting, product operations, or instructional design. Job descriptions show responsibilities, but not the daily rhythm. A title cannot tell you how often priorities change, how performance is measured, or which problems consume most of the week. When that information is missing, the mind fills the gap with imagined best cases and worst cases. One person romanticizes the new career. Another assumes they will fail. Neither is working with much evidence. More options can make this worse. If you are comparing 10 possible careers, every choice seems to eliminate 9 futures. Keeping everything open feels safe, but it has a cost. Your resume stays broad. Your LinkedIn profile stays vague. Your networking conversations produce generic advice because nobody knows what you are trying to do. If this is helping you understand a career problem you have struggled to name, subscribe. We focus on practical ways to get seen, interviewed, and hired without pretending the process is simple. The third force is sunk cost. A sunk cost is something you have already invested and cannot fully recover, such as time, money, status, or effort. People often allow those past investments to control a decision that should be based on future costs and benefits. You might think, "I cannot leave marketing because I spent years building this career," or "I already paid for this certification, so I need to keep pursuing these roles." Past experience matters when it gives you useful skills, credibility, relationships, or income. It should not become a command to continue in a direction that no longer works. Try this question. If I had my current skills, but no attachment to my current title, would I still choose this path for the next 3 years? That does not mean you should quit whenever work becomes frustrating. Every field has difficult periods. It means previous investment is one piece of information, not the final vote. Then there is social comparison. You see a former coworker announce a promotion. Someone younger becomes a director. A friend completes a career change and posts the successful ending, not the months of uncertainty that came before it. Their visible result becomes your reference point. Suddenly, a sensible move feels too small. You stop asking whether a role fits your life and start asking whether it looks impressive enough beside someone else's career. Social comparison also distorts timing. You may reject a useful bridge role because it appears less senior than your current title, or you may rush into management because it looks like the expected next step, even though you prefer specialist work. A career decision should solve your actual problem. It does not need to win an imaginary competition. So, how do you make a better decision? Start with values, but define them as working conditions rather than inspirational words. Saying you value growth is too vague. Almost everyone wants growth. Ask what growth would look like during a normal week. Does it mean learning new software, taking ownership of larger projects, increasing your income, becoming a manager, developing deep expertise, having more control over your schedule? Do the same with flexibility, stability, creativity, and impact. Translate each word into an observable condition. For example, flexibility might mean working remotely 3 days a week. Stability might mean predictable hours and limited commission-based pay. Creativity might mean designing new solutions rather than following a fixed procedure. Your values are not job titles. They are conditions that help you judge job titles. Next, identify skills with evidence behind them. Do not begin with personality labels, such as hardworking, strategic, or good with people. Begin with problems you have repeatedly solved. Look at your previous projects and ask what changed because of your work. Did you reduce delays, organize information, train employees, retain customers, analyze data, improve a process, or coordinate people across departments? The National Association of Colleges and Employers describes career readiness through competencies, including communication, critical thinking, teamwork, technology, leadership, professionalism, and career development. The useful idea is that broad strengths become credible when you can demonstrate them through behavior. A weak career change explanation sounds like this. I want to move into project management because I am organized and ready for a new challenge. A stronger version sounds like this. In my operations role, I coordinated 3 department leads, tracked deadlines, resolved scheduling conflicts, and introduced a weekly status report that helped the team identify delays earlier. I now want to apply that coordination experience in a formal project role. The second version gives an employer proof. It connects the old career to the new one, instead of asking the employer to imagine the connection. Now check market evidence. Interest matters, but interest alone cannot tell you whether employers will understand your fit. The U.S. Department of Labor's O-Net Interest Profiler organizes occupational interest into 6 broad areas and connects those interests with occupations. Tools like this can help you generate possibilities, but they should be treated as exploration tools, not machines that reveal one perfect career. Once you have 2 or 3 possible directions, collect evidence from real job postings. Read at least several descriptions for the same type of role. Look for repeated responsibilities, tools, qualifications, and business problems. Do not count every requirement equally. Separate what appears repeatedly from what appears once. Then compare those patterns with your current evidence. Suppose 8 project coordinator postings repeatedly mention scheduling, documentation, stakeholder communication, spreadsheets, and risk tracking. You may already have evidence for 4 of those areas. Your gap is now specific. You do not need to reinvent yourself. You may need to learn one tool and create clearer examples of work you have already done. Finally, run a small test. A career decision is easier when the next step is reversible. Before paying for a long program or resigning from a job, test one assumption. Ask someone in the role to describe their last difficult week. Complete a short project using a common tool. Volunteer for a related assignment at work. Rewrite your resume for one target role and apply to a focused group of openings. Speak with recruiters and notice which parts of your background they question. The purpose of the test is not to guarantee success. It is to replace imagination with information. Imagine someone named Maya who works in customer support and wants to move into data analysis. Her first plan is to quit, complete an expensive program, and then begin applying. A smaller test would be to analyze support ticket trends using data she can access appropriately, summarize the findings, and recommend one operational improvement. She could also examine analyst job postings to identify common tools and speak with 2 working analysts about their daily responsibilities. After that test, Maya might discover that she enjoys finding patterns, but dislikes extensive data cleaning. That is useful. She may explore customer insights or operations analysis instead of forcing herself toward a title she chose from a distance. This framework will not remove all uncertainty. That is not the goal. The goal is to make a decision with enough evidence to take the next step. You do not need to identify the perfect career for the rest of your life. You need a direction that fits your current priorities, uses or develops valuable skills, has support from the market, and survives a realistic test. Smart people often stay stuck because they try to make uncertainty disappear before acting. A better process uses action to reduce uncertainty. Define the working conditions you value. Describe your skills through proof. Study what employers repeatedly request. Then test the direction while the cost of being wrong is still small. If you have a career decision you are trying to make, share it in the comments and tell us which job search or career change problem you want us to explain next.